Now that we've gotten our offer accepted, we have this ratified contract. This is the time that we get into the buyer's closing checklist. This is basically a list of the things that I will do to help facilitate getting us from this now ratified contract point all the way through settlement. At settlement, that's when you're going to take ownership of the property, get your keys, take your pictures, and do all the fun, exciting Instagram, all that stuff, right? In this buyer closing checklist, here are the things that we will be checking off to make sure that we follow through and get everything accomplished and done so that we can close with zero issues. So as you look at the checklist, it's very basic and very simple. Up top, you're going to have property address, the date of ratification, and the closing date. The ratification date and the closing date are important because there are different things within this contract that need to be done within certain days from things like the date of ratification, or things that you need to have within said number of days before closing. So I put those in here so that we understand what those target dates are to make sure that we are on track throughout the whole process. So once we get that ratified contract, the first thing I'm doing is I'm sending that around to everybody who needs a copy of it. That would be the lender, that would be the settlement company, and that would be you as the buyer so that you have it for your records. We've already talked about this, but the next thing that you need to do is you need to inquire about hazard insurance, which is homeowners insurance, and you have a 7-day window from ratification to do that. So if you ratify this Friday, you have to at the very least inquire and get a quote by next Friday for homeowners insurance. If you're buying a property that happens to be in an HOA or condo or co-op, then you would have a period of time to go over and review those documents. If you're looking to buy in a community that has an association, then the sellers will be responsible with getting us that information, and we will have a said number of days to go over, review that, sign it, and send it back. If it's an HOA, it's going to be a 5-day window. If it's a condo, it's going to be a 7-day window to review those documentations once you get them and respond back to the sellers about everything that's in there. If the rules and regulations that are in these association documents don't really meet the standards that you need, or they don't jive with your lifestyle, then this would be a way to back out of a contract without penalty. Meaning, if you got out of this contract, that you would still be able to get your earnest money deposit back. As a buyer, you should also be getting contacted by the settlement company. Typically, they're going to want to know all of your contact information, name, all that other stuff. And they're going to ask you some other personal things as well. And they're going to give you the update and the scoop on everything that they're doing and costs and fees and all that stuff. The next thing that you need to do is call your mover, because now the ball is rolling. Sometimes these things happen very fast and people want to get packed and all that other stuff and do everything, and they think that they can just call the mover the week before. Based on your market, where you're at, where you're relocating to, where you're moving from, all of those things factor into when is the appropriate time to contact your mover. As a rule of thumb, I always try to tell people, once we get under contract, the next day at the very least is when you need to call the mover. Because sometimes if it's busy season, if it's fall, it might not be an issue, but if it's springtime or early summertime and they're moving a lot of people, there may be a wait. They might say, hey, we're booked up for the next 4 weeks. And you're like, oh, well, I have a 21-day close, so that doesn't work. So you need to reach out to those people as soon as possible. So once you get ratified, once you have that ratified contract, one of the first things that you want to do is call your mover and schedule the move. In that contract that we submitted and we got accepted, there's going to be timelines and windows for when you have to have things like home inspection done. As we see here on the checklist, I'm able to write in how many days from ratification, things like home inspection, radon inspection, appraisal, termites, well test, septic test, financing contingency. All those things are written right in here. What I do is I put those days from ratification into this checklist. Once we clear those hurdles, check them off. Once there's been a home inspection done on the property, if there are any repairs that need to be done, then the sellers will have those done and will have receipts provided to us. Whenever this is done, it has to be done by a licensed contractor. So they're going to provide us with receipts saying that the work was done and it was done by a licensed individual. There's no, I'm just going to fix this and tell you that it's fixed and all that other stuff. Nah, we ain't doing that. We're a professional operation. We're going to have professionals do it, and we're going to have receipts done so that everybody feels good and comfortable and confident. And then also the reason we want licensed contractors is if there is something that they have done, then they are putting their license on the line to make sure it was done correctly. The next thing on the buyer closing checklist is what happens prior to closing. Within 1 week of settlement, we're going to make sure that we call the utility companies and make sure that you have set up an account in your name using all of your information and have all the utilities switched into your name as of the date of settlement. We will schedule a final walkthrough typically within the last 2 or 3 days right before settlement. This way it gives the sellers ample time to get all their stuff out of there and get situated. And it also gives us a day or two at the very least that if we do a final walkthrough and things aren't up to snuff, then we have some time to have the sellers rectify that. The home needs to be free of trash and debris and broom clean. I know that's very subjective, but the one thing that we're not going to have or not going to stand for is walking into a property that's full of trash, full of debris, full of things that use the new buyer who just spent a whole lot of money getting into this property. We don't want you spending money to then have other people's stuff removed from your new house. These are the things that we're looking for when we do that final walkthrough. You will also receive a copy of the final closing disclosure. In this closing disclosure, it will tell you to the penny, every dime, every penny, every nickel that you will have to spend on closing costs. It'll also give you a breakdown of your loan payments. If it's a 30-year loan, they're going to give you all 360 payments, what's due, what dates, how much of that payment is principal, how much is interest for the life of the loan. Sometimes that's an additional like 2 or 3 pages in this document, but this is all coming. This is all for you to review before you get to the closing table. This will also help you figure out how you're going to pay your closing costs. Some people bring a check, depending on the title company and how they want to do it. Sometimes it's a check, sometimes it's a wire, sometimes it's an ACH. It all depends. You should have all of that stuff within 3 days of the settlement. So you'll get a 3-day window to review those documents to make sure everything is correct. I will look over them as well. You'll look over them. We'll have a conversation and talk. If everything looks good on everybody's end, then there shouldn't be any issues. If anything looks off, I will reach out to the title company, ask for an explanation, and try to get to the bottom of things and get things rectified. Bring your driver's license. They are going to need a government ID to make sure you are you when it comes to settlement. So they are going to look at your driver's license or passport or whatever government ID that you give them, military ID. But you need to bring that or else they don't know who you are. They can't validate and certify that you are who you are, and settlement will not go off without your government ID. And then lastly, if you live in a place that has public water, then a water meter reading. That is my job. I will take a picture of that during our final walkthrough, submit that to the title company. They will reach out to the utility company and basically give them that meter reading so that you are paid for the appropriate amount of utilities that you do use and you're not paying for the previous owner's stuff. They typically, with things with like water bills, they will typically keep, between $400, $500 in escrow from the sellers to cover any final water bills that may come after the settlement. So we go through that whole checklist, and that leads us right into closing itself. So settlement day. Stay tuned to the next video where we talk about closing cost breakdown, because everybody just says closing costs and not many people know exactly what's included with that.